the reigning, defending, greatest show of all time on the Player Profiler YouTube channel. That's right, baby. Shout out to all of you guys tapped in, tuned in on this beautiful Tuesday at 7 p.m. Eastern time. Last week, we had the show of a lifetime because maybe it was because we put the timestamps in there. I think it was because we put the timestamps in there. We're going to do it again today because we appreciate you and we love you. And we're going to get you ready. Last week, we talked about all things coming out of mandatory minicamp. This week, we're heading into kind of a lull period here in the NFL as we ramp up for training camp in just about 4 weeks. So today we have 21 things that you need to know before NFL training camp kicks off. Again, this fall, I will again be boots on the ground, traveling through some training camps. Hopefully I can get my boy Matty to go to maybe the Patriots mini camp or training camp, maybe the Giants training camp, but I'll be boots on the ground, hovering around to these training camps, getting the best analysis that we can find. Myself, Byron, and the Trashman will be moving around over at rosterwatch.com. So make sure you stay tuned in and stay tapped in. Matty Kiwoom, 21 things, baby. How are we doing on this fine Tuesday?
Oh, man, I cannot complain. Celtics, champions of the world, my 13th championship as a Boston sports fan. I couldn't imagine waking up and not being a Boston sports fan. It's unbelievable. We're a football show, though, so I had to bust out a little championship jersey for the football squad, a little Rob Gronkowski 8-7. But, man, I mean, I'm a little tired today. I had to stay up late. You know, it takes a lot out of you waiting for another championship. You know, had been 5 years or something, 6 years. So it's been a while up here.
Matty Kiwoom, how old are you?
I am 36 years old.
You have how many championships in your lifetime?
I have seen 13 victorious championships, another 6 appearances, I believe it is.
So 19 times you've been to the championship with a power sports team. I am 27 years old, and I have 0 championships under my belt as a Minnesota sports fan. And we've been to 0.
Well,
so we've been to a couple of NFC championships, but that's about it. So I'm good on hearing that because y'all took my favorite growing up, Kevin Garnett, and y'all won a championship with him. So let's move on to some real football. I don't want to talk about your Boston Celtics. You guys win too much. 21 things you need to know before training camp, starting with number 1, Matty Kiwoom.
Of the 6 first-round quarterbacks selected, only 2 will go into training camp as the clear-cut starters, being the number 1 and number 2 picks, Jaylen Daniels and Caleb Williams. Drake May, they want to develop him. He's playing a little bit better, but it seems like Brissett will go into camp as the starter. Penix obviously will not go into starter with Cousins getting that massive deal. The Sam Darnold drumbeat is loud enough where I think he will go in getting the first-team reps in camp. And I'm getting more and more confused, I think is the right adjective, of what's going on in Denver. We have Bo Nix, the 12th overall pick, but the 6th quarterback selected. Jared Stidham, Bo Nix, and Zach Wilson are all getting first-team reps, pretty much splitting a third. And despite some negative reports, there are some, some that view Zach Wilson as the most talented quarterback, and it's not particularly close in terms of his mobility to the off-platform throws, the arm strength. Now, will that be enough for him to be victorious and be the QB? No, but it is something to look out for, and I don't think that Bo Nix is the clear starter heading into camp.
So I'm going to go to running back here with my first one, and that's going to be the Buffalo Bills backfield. This backfield in Buffalo is James Cook's to lose. That's pretty apparent at this point, but he's not going to have 300 carries. He's not going to have 350 touches, and it doesn't feel like Buffalo really has a contingency plan on June 18th. Now, on August 18th, hopefully they do have a clear-cut plan. They have rookie late-round pick Ray Davis. They have undrafted free agent rookie Frank Gore Jr., veteran Ty Johnson, league bounce-around Darrington Evans, who we thought was going to retire. Ray Davis is 25 years old and most recently rushed for 1,000 yards at Kentucky. This guy feels like he's going to be the one that vaults himself into this number 2 role. We've seen what that can look like with Latavius Murray, with Zach Moss, dating back to Damian Harris at Buffalo the last 5 years. this number 2 role is going to be important in this Buffalo offense. Right now, as far as ADP goes on FFPC, Ray Davis is running back 50. Fantasy Pros, he's running back 47. Training camp, this is one thing you need to know. Ray Davis should be the guy, but somebody needs to and somebody will jump into this backfield and suppress some James Cook ADP and take carries out of this backfield.
Ray Davis profiles the most as the guy that they'll need late in the season, no doubt about that. This time of the year, obviously, holdouts are synonymous with minicamps, OTAs, even as we head into training camp. I'm not really worried about the big buck guys, the blue chippers, the guys that are going to set markets, your CeeDee Lambs and whatnot. But it is time to start worrying as we head into training camp of the older holdouts, i.e. Amari Cooper and Alvin Kamara. We heard a lot of good things about Cedric Tillman. Obviously, the extended Jerry Jeudy. Elijah Moore is getting the praise from his teammate, Deshaun Watson. And Amari Cooper is a no-show. Alvin Kamara, kind of the same thing. He left practice a few days ago, and we've heard multiple reports that Kendre Miller is looking good. Some say that the team, the coaching staff wants to highlight Kendre Miller in this offense. So I think it's definitely time to start worrying about these older holdouts.
I'm going to go to Pittsburgh here. And my biggest question is why people are so adamant that Najee Harris isn't good. He's younger than Alvin Kamara, Josh Jacobs, Ramondre Stevenson, Saquon Barkley, David Montgomery, James Conner, and Aaron Jones. Maddie, I thought these were some interesting stats right here. These guys, right? That is 7 players currently, each of which are being drafted ahead of Najee Harris. Something that none of these guys have in common with Najee Harris is Najee has played 17 games in each of the last 3 seasons. His only 3 seasons in the NFL. None of those guys we just talked about, or none of those guys I just listed, have played in 17 in consecutive seasons, let alone all 3. Also, in those 3 seasons that he played 17 games, he also had 1,000+ rushing yards in each of those 3 seasons, his only 3 seasons in the NFL. None of those 7 guys I listed before that have rushed for 1,000 yards in back-to-back seasons, let alone each of those 3 seasons. Again, Najee Harris is one of the best values in fantasy football, one of the best backs in football. And when it comes to training camp, you're going to hear a lot of buzz about Jaylen Warren. You're going to hear a lot of buzz about guys that were undrafted rookies coming in there working out. But the bottom line is, because Stone Cold said so, and Stone Cold in this conversation is Mike Tomlin. Mike Tomlin loves him some Najee Harris. Arthur Smith loves him some big, bad running back. And Najee Harris is a big, bad running back, and they're going to be force-feeding Najee once again. And you're going to be getting a sick value here. So training camp comes around. Ignore the Jaylen Warren buzz. Yes, he's a great satellite guy. He's a great guy that's going to get targets. Yes, he's a great handcuff, but he's not Najee Harris or Najee Harris's replacement.
I love me some Najee Harris going into this year. And sticking with the Pittsburgh Steelers, I think it's important for everyone to know heading into training camp that Justin Fields will not see the field unless Russell Wilson gets hurt. Russell Wilson is taking a commanding lead in this offense, connecting with George Pickens, connecting with Calvin Austin. The rumor is he's invited George Pickens out to Denver or wherever he's going to be at when they've wrapped up practices to continue working on their rapport. We've already heard rumblings of a mini extension even. I don't think that there's a chance Justin Fields sees the football field, and we'll get a clear picture of that as we head into training camp, seeing how these reps are split between Wilson and Fields. But I think it's important for people to know as we head into the, training camp, don't get over your skis with your Justin Fields exposure in UD, and especially in dynasty startups. You got to temper your expectations. You don't want to have this guy in your team for a whole year and not play. So I think you should only look at Justin Fields marginally more invaluable than like your Trey Lances even.
I'm going to go to tight end with another team that's up there in the East, the Buffalo Bills. I talked about the Buffalo Bills backfield. Now I want to talk about their pass catchers. They've been linked to Brendan Ayuk since back when the draft happened. They drafted Keon Coleman. We heard some comments about Keon Coleman's progression as a receiver, as a route runner over the course of the last couple of weeks from the coaching staff. Dalton Kincaid.
Dalton Kincaid was a rookie last year at 91 targets, 73 receptions, 673 yards, and 2 touchdowns. I'm going to bring you guys a statistical comparison to another K. That is Kelce. Kelce, age 25, sophomore season. His rookie season didn't do anything. Sophomore season, and when I say anything, he quite literally nothing. Not a single target. Sophomore season, 87 targets, 67 receptions, a 62-5. He doubled down on that in year number 2 with 103 targets, and then he jumped up to 117, 122, 150. What we're going to learn here from this situation is, obviously we've talked about it before, is Buffalo is trying to follow in the path of Kansas City, but they're going to try and do it more so ways than one. And one of the clear-cut ways is going to be directionally throwing the football to the tight end and utilizing the tight end, the best pass catcher on the roster in more ways than one. Kincaid's going to jump from 91 targets up into that 120 to 150 range. He's going to have a monumental jump, and that's not going to come to clear eyes until we get closer to the season, maybe even into the season. You're going to hear a lot of buzz about Curtis Samuel, a lot of buzz about KJ Hamler, because these are camp studs. You're going to hear a lot of buzz about the rookie Keon Coleman. Justin Shorter is going to make some plays. But you got to remember that Dalton Kincaid is the maestro in this offense as the pass catcher, and he's going to continue to be. I know he's being drafted in that conversation right now in fantasy football, but Dalton Kincaid, everyone was hyped about last year. This is the year. This is the year for Dalton Kincaid in his age 25 sophomore season, where he's going to go berserk, and he may take over as the best tight end in football.
We're talking about big-time breakouts. We're talking about guys whose value we'll see spike even before we see the week 1 kickoff commence. I'm talking about a wide receiver here going into his 3rd year, Jameson Williams. He's heading towards a year 3 breakout. The buzz is getting louder and louder. The plays that he's making in camp, he's doing the right things in the eyes of Dan Campbell and that coaching staff. He's in the back pocket of Amon-Ra St. Brown, running rep, run after running rep, running crisp routes, doing the studying. He's heading for a year 3 breakout. So as we head into training camp, you want to get these pockets of value now, because regardless of how you want to play it in fantasy, his value is going to go up before week 1. And then by the time he's making plays on the NFL field, it may be too late to get some value. So right now, as we head into training camp, be ready for that Jameson Williams 3rd year breakout.
Matty, we're only a third of the way there, but we're going to continue to cook. Please click that like button. Please click subscribe. Make sure you're tapped in, tuned in. We also have the Draft Rankings podcast that's on Mondays and Fridays right now. You can go over to the Draft Rankings podcast on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts to get that feed. Number 8 on this list, for me, I'm going to go down to Miami. Jaylen Wright. Jaylen Wright, everybody knows coming into the draft, this guy's got, 2 lightning bolts attached to his hamstrings. I said that, 117 times. But when you're talking about this backfield in Miami, last year with Devon Achane, with Raheem Mostert rushed for over 1,000 yards for the first time in his 9-year career. 21 total touchdowns. I think he's got 38 career touchdowns. He had 21 last year. 21 is part of that 38. He had 17 before that. He missed 2 games last year. He turned 32 this year. Devon Achane's expected to bounce back, but he missed 6 games last year. Salvon Ahmed, Jeff Wilson, Chris Brooks combined for 82 carries and 40 targets. Not only are all of those carries and targets going to go to Jaylen Wright and also to Mostert and Achane, but I think Mike McDaniel is going to utilize these 3 backs in a very special way, and it's going to make Wright a very valuable piece in all fantasy formats. And he's going right now running back 45 and running back 48 at FFPC and Fantasy Pros respectively. Jaylen Wright's going to have a massive, massive training camp, and it's going to start with the first preseason game, because that's what rookies do, especially guys with this dynamism. Ty Chandler, first person on the scene. Mike Boone, first person on the scene in training camp, and you're going to see it with Jaylen Wright this time.
Speaking of rookie running backs, Kimani Vidal might end up being the absolute steal of rookie drafts, especially the early ones. So as we head into camp, there's theoretically 3 running backs in contention for touches for the Los Angeles Chargers. Neither J.K. Dobbins nor Gus Edwards showed up to OTAs. I know they're voluntary, but they didn't show up. And now Gus Edwards is banged up. We know that J.K. Dobbins' health has always been in question. And Vidal has been there the entire time, making plays in the running game and in the passing game. And Jim Harbaugh, as the new head coach, He wants to set up an atmosphere, a nature of competitors, of compete. Bust your ass to compete. Seems like right now in that department, Kimani Vidal is running away with the compete award in that backfield. And that might be enough to come away with the lion's share of this three-headed backfield. And we know he's a pretty good playmaker, good at breaking tackles, sufficient enough in the passing game. If Kimani Vidal comes away with 40% of this snap share and starts kind of climbing the ranks in terms of opportunity share, he's going to absolutely smash his ADP right now going after running back 50.
This one's going to be short. This one's going to be sweet. I don't want to say it with much heat. Justin Jefferson. I am extremely, extremely nervous about this season for Justin Jefferson. They've been saying Sam Darnold's going to be the starting quarterback. J.J. McCarthy's been studying the playbook with his girlfriend. They have a running backfield there in Jones and Ty Chandler they can depend on. Jordan Addison's sick nasty. Now they love Robert Tonyan at tight end. Like, I'm not saying there's an abundance of talent that's going to take away from giving the ball to Justin Jefferson, because this is a good offensive line that should give the quarterback time, but creating a connection with Darnold and or J.J. McCarthy, I'm just nervous about what this offense looks like. I'm not saying he can't have a 14, 15, 1600-yard season, but I'm just nervous, especially at the price we're paying for Jefferson right now, which is still top 7, top 8. I love to draft him there at 7, 8, 9, 10 in the first round of the drafts, but I'm ridiculously nervous. I feel a lot better about Lamb, about Hill, about Amon-Ra St. Brown. I want to see, and we need to see what's going to happen this fall with Justin Jefferson and the Vikings offense.
Whew, that just sent a little bit of a chill up my spine. I'm not going to lie. A Justin Jefferson down here is nothing I'm ready for emotionally. But what I'm saying for everyone listening here, first of all, shout out for listening here on this Tuesday night episode of The Hurdle, is to fade Austin Ekeler as we go into training camp. Brian Robinson, the reports keep coming out. He's making plays in the passing game. We know he's a hard worker. He comes from Alabama. He comes from the Nick Saban running back tree, which just has so much success in the NFL. And Austin Ekeler is coming off of his worst season as a pro. And the metrics that I look at in terms of his skill set, like, is it diminishing? 62nd in true yards per carry, 36th in juke rate, 27th in evaded tackles, 46th in breakaway run rate. This looks like a player whose skills are diminishing. And if Brian Robinson can stay on the field more than we expect, then Austin Ekeler is a complete fade. And then you factor in the health. It's just another, pebble or a point in the Brian Robinson camp. So Brian Robinson is a player that I don't have much exposure to now, but is a player that I am going to start buying into a little bit more often.
It's an interesting one. I heard the interview with Ekeler talking about the Chargers wanting a 300 carry back. I don't know if he understood that right, because I'm not sure Kimani Vidal or anybody on that offense is a 300 carry back at this current stage. I wish J.K. Dobbins was, but anyway, Brian Robinson's kind of interesting. My next one, I'm going to go to the New York Giants. The biggest, I think, running back competition of the fall centralizes around Eric Gray and Tyrone Tracy. And the reason being, yes, we don't know what this offense is going to be. People think Daniel Jones has breakout candidate written all over him. People thought that last year. Matty. Malik Neighbors is there. Super talent. I'm just kidding. Malik Neighbors is there. Super talent. I know the opportunity is there for the tight ends. But the running back room is where I'm interested. They brought in Devin Singletary to replace Saquon Barkley. And we've heard a lot of positivity around Eric Gray and Tyrone Tracy. Tyrone Tracy's a missed tackle machine, played receiver, good pass catching back. Eric Gray, soft like butter. His hands are amazing. Coming out of Oklahoma, rushed for 1,300 yards. This competition, Eric Gray versus Tyrone Tracy, to me, has kind of league winner written all over it, right? You don't know which one it's going to be, but one of them is going to be able to kind of just work in behind Devin Singletary for the first 5-6 weeks, and then there's opportunity for him to take over. And I'm not sure which one it is, but I think we're going to know by the end of fall camp which one it isn't.
Ooh. That's going to be a tough one. Ambiguous backfields is probably the most important takeaway as we head into training camp. You've talked about a number of them, and I'm going to stick to it. Another ambiguous backfield is the Cincinnati Bengals backfield. But heading into training camp, I can't sit here and tell you which one. I'm sorry. But what I will tell you that if you're willing to gamble And if you have a strong inclination, follow your gut, because the winners, the people who decide right when it comes to Chase Brown versus Moss, and maybe the answer is just the cheapest one, whatever, that could be a league-winning decision because Mixon's out of the picture, and Brown is a tremendous athlete in terms of his size and speed, and he's getting a lot of praise in the passing game, which was a huge reason why Mixon was consistently a fantasy producer and in that offense. And then Zach Moss, who they brought in, so they identified as a player that they like, a guy who definitely surprised many in 2023 with his fantasy production. So I don't know what back is going to be the one that wins leagues in fantasy, but I will say that if you have a gut feeling, Cody, you or anyone out there listening, follow your gut, because the winning decision there is going to be a big winner for fantasy football.
I'm going to go back to Houston. I was going to go to Buffalo, but Diggs doesn't play for Buffalo anymore. I'm going to go to Houston, the receiving room. I told you I was worried about Justin Jefferson. I'm equally worried about really the whole Houston receiving core. And I'm not worried because of CJ Stroud. I'm not worried because Cade Stover. I'm worried because there's a ton of talent. And some people might put a cliche alert on this one if you say it the wrong way. But the receiving talent in Houston right now, the highest drafted player, I believe, is Nico Collins, according to ADP right now, which I wholeheartedly disagree with, even though I've been one of the biggest Nico Collins truthers there's been. When you look at the target distribution last year, it was 109 targets for Nico Collins. He had 80 receptions. Dalton Schultz had 88. Tank Dell was hurt. He only played in 8 games. He had 75. Again, Nico only played in 15 games. Robert Woods was there. He had 75 targets. Noah Brown had 55 targets. I get that. 55 and 75. Whilst having Tank and Nico miss games, I think some of those targets will distribute to Nico and Tank, assuming they're healthy, and Stephon Diggs, and Dalton Schultz is there, and Joe Mixon's more of a pass-catching back, is a stronger pass-catching back, I would say, than Devin Singletary, plus the maturation of Brevin Jordan as a tight end in that room next to Dalton Schultz, plus they love John Mechie, who had 30 targets last year. There's a lot in this receiving room that I'm not sure any of them should be drafted higher than wide receiver 17, 18. Like, it's not like it's Higgins Chase. It's not like it's Jefferson, Addison. It's not like it's Thielen Diggs. It's not like it's two savages. We're talking about Nico, Tank, Stephon Diggs, Schultz, who's been a top 10 tight end before. Like, it's a lot. Joe Mixon, who's been a top 10 running back before with finished top 10 in targets before. Like, there's a lot there. I'm nervous about the whole landscape from a fantasy football perspective. I'm not worried about it from a team perspective. I think they're going to be really good. But from a fantasy football perspective, I am nervous. And one of the big things going into training camp is seeing what the distribution looks like. Because if you don't nail it in your drafts, if you don't nail which one of these guys you think is going to be more consistent on a weekly basis, which it might be Tank, it might not be Nico, it might be Diggs, but Diggs also has the least rapport with Stroud. If you don't nail who it is during training camp, if we don't figure it out, you're gonna be chewing on freaking some worn out rubber when it comes to October. You're gonna be starting Nico Collins, and he's averaging 3.5 targets a game.
You're pulling your hair out. It's tough, but it does give Stroud 40 touchdown upside with all those weapons. It's a really, really, really strong wide receiver room. My next take here is actually a pretty light one, and that's why I think that heading into training camp, we all need to start preparing for Zay Flowers being a wide receiver 1 in fantasy. The wide receiver 1 season is incoming for Zay Flowers. Rashad Bateman continues to be bad at football. It's not good for him. Tez Walker is a one-trick pony. His best trick is going to be going deep, opening up things for Zay Flowers. And then you have Mark Andrews and Isaiah Likely, who continues to make plays, continues to impress. In my opinion, as Mark Andrews, the usage comes down a bit. They influx a little more Isaiah Likely to ensure that Mark Andrews is healthy when they care the most. Not us, fantasy gamers, but the Ravens care the most in December, January, and February. Which means I think we see a ton of targets, 120-ish targets, go to Zay Flowers. And Zay Flowers, what he does so well and what he did so well as a rookie is he gets open. 6th in total route wins, 6th in win rate versus man coverage, 55.9% route win rate overall with the targets. This guy is going to eat. And we all have to go into training camp ready for Zay Flowers' wide receiver 1 season to happen. And right now he's coming off the board at wide receiver 25. So there's a nice little value there if you believe in Zay like I believe in Zay.
We all believe in Zay. And if you don't, I don't care. If you do, please click that like button. Please click subscribe. We're through 15 here. We're about to go into rapid fire mode. But remember, subscribe, click like. We appreciate you. We love you. We'll be back tomorrow night at 7 p.m. Eastern time talking Dynasty. Number 16 here for me. I'm going to go Ty Kevius Chandler in Minnesota. A year ago when I was on that training camp tour, it's not Chandler. It's not Nwangu. It's not McBride that was going to pair with Madison. They had to go out and trade for Cam Akers. By the midpoint of the season, Akers was hurt. Chandler came in. 6 of the remaining games, he had 10-plus carries. He finished 132 against the Bengals. Chandler will establish himself as the co-RB1, not the RB2 in Minnesota in training camp.
People beware. If you are a Jermaine Burton fan for 2024, be very, very cautious. T. Higgins signs a 1-year deal. He will be there and be present in training camp. Andre Yosivas continues to make plays, continues to build a rapport with Joe Burrow, and is the most decorated wide receiver after you get your T. Higgins and Jamar Chase in that offense. So if you believe that Jermaine Burton is going to break out as a rookie, I would hold your horses. I think 2024 is going to be a rough one for Jermaine Burton. And as we head into training camp, it's time to start being very cautious of his 24 outlook.
One player that I'm extremely cautious about right now is Mr. Kyren Williams. Kyren Williams, the running back, the league winner of sorts last year for none other than the Los Angeles Rams, currently going off the board as the 22nd player in drafts. So that would put him, Matty Kiwoom, in the 2nd round. Everything we've heard coming out of the Rams, we love Blake Corum. Blake Corum is a bell cow. Blake Corum can do it all. And we have gotten cucked so much by this Rams backfield, dating back to Darrell Henderson, and the list goes on before Kyren was even existence with the Rams. Be cautious. Don't draft Kyren Williams, and be ready for the Blake Corum show in training camp.
Folks, I don't want to say it, and I'm sorry to have to say this to you, Cody, because I know this is going to sting. And when Sethy D hears this, he's also going to have his words with me. But we have to start preparing as we head into training camp as the Green Bay Packers having the best offensive passing attack in all of football. Christian Watson can stay healthy. Jaden Reed goes in a year 2. I mean, Romeo Dubes is dog water, but what he does well is catch touchdowns in the NFL. So him as your 4th receiver, behind Davian Wicks, Bo Melton is an athlete. 2 good tight ends, both good pass catchers. We could see a lot of 12 personnel to really mix things up coming from Green Bay. They're seemingly healthy. They're seemingly taking that next step. And as Jordan Love continues to get better, we have to prepare ourselves, folks, for the Green Bay Packers to be the number 1 passing attack in all of the NFL.
I don't love it, but I respect it because it was the youngest a couple years ago, and now it's up there. My last one, number 20 for me, is going to go to the Washington Commanders. Jaden Daniels said, "I'm not a superstar, man. I'm just a rookie." He's trying to get Brandon Ayuk. I don't think it's going to work. I don't think when you say, "Oh, this team doesn't want me back," I don't think that means they're going to trade you to play with your best friend. However, the people that are playing with Jaden Daniels, 2 guys that have disappointed to this point in their career, in my opinion, that is Terry McLaurin and that is Jahan Dotson. Both of these guys will illuminate practice all through training camp. I'm not sure they're going to do it during the season. I'm hoping so. I'm hoping Terry McLaurin can finally crest through and be a top 15 receiver. I'm nervous, but they are going to dominate training camp. So keep your eyes peeled on Ashburn, Virginia for that Washington Commanders training camp.
I'm going to end it with a bang here. 21. So 21 things that you need to know before the NFL training camp. Number 21 is Trevor Lawrence is finally going to smash his ADP. He's currently coming off the board as quarterback 14. And I think this is the year he ascends into the top 10. I don't like what they did in the draft. I don't like what Trent Baalke does as a team builder. But as a fantasy team, I think Trevor Lawrence has the roster he's been dying for. A lot of deep targets went to Calvin Ridley and Zay Jones. They're gone. Insert two improvements in terms of that skill set, going deep, going up and getting it in rookie Brian Thomas and Gabe Davis. And as you look at Trevor Lawrence, you pop the hood, look on and look at his deep ball metrics. Kid tosses a good one. He can spin it deep, Cody. So I think this is the players that he's been looking for. This is the offense that he's been driving towards. And now with the contract, he can breathe. He can just focus on the game. And I think heading into training camp, we have to be ready for Trevor Lawrence to be a top 10 fantasy producer in 2024.
There it is. There's 21 things you need to know before NFL training camp begins in late July. He is Matty Kiwoom. I am Cody Carpentier. We'll be back tomorrow night doing the Hurdle Dynasty Edition over on the Executives of Fantasy Football YouTube channel. You can also catch the Draft Rankings podcast on Mondays and Fridays, wherever you get your podcast. Type in the Draft Rankings podcast or on YouTube. Until next time, we appreciate you. We love you. Click that like button, drop a comment, tell us how much you love us. We appreciate you. Thank you, and see you.
Banner 18, peace.